Hi everyone, welcome to the SauceCon session on creating your test automation strategy. I hope you're doing well and staying safe. My name is Julia Pottinger. I am currently the Training and Development Manager at QualityWorks Consulting Group. I am from the beautiful island of Jamaica where I currently work and live. You can find me over on Twitter at iluge876. You can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Julia Pottinger, where I put out videos on test automation, WebDriver IO, and a bit of development using React and Material UI. I also blog about these same topics at juliapottinger.com. In today's session, we're going to define what a test automation strategy is, and then I'm going to walk you through how you can go about creating one for your project. A test automation strategy is a plan that defines the framework that you're going to use to get reusable automated scripts, as well as how you're going to create those scripts and maintain them. You want to ensure that you create a test automation strategy that is understood by your entire team, as they are going to be the ones to implement it. Test automation can provide valuable return on investment, such as faster time to market, more reliable, faster tests. However, it takes a lot of time and effort, and you don't want to dive into starting writing automated scripts without first having a test automation strategy. Your strategy should define how you're going to go about doing automation, who is going to be writing it, when are you going to be running it, and what environments you're going to use. It defines the who, what, why, when, how, and where of your test automation. Now that we have all agreed that you should not go about writing test automation scripts without first having a solid test automation strategy, let's talk about what should be in that strategy. The first thing that you want to do is identify your why. Why do you want to have automated tests? You can consider this to be your goal. What is the goal that you're trying to achieve by creating automated scripts? There are several goals that you may have in mind. You may want to have faster time to market. And with test automation, you're going to be delivering quality software faster. It could be that you want to have automation done in the same sprint that your developers are creating features. It could also be that you want to reduce manual testing. You have a lot of regression tests that you have to do, and they take a long time. And introducing automated tests will reduce the time that you have to spend doing those regression for each sprint over and over again. Adding automated tests will reduce the time spent on manual regression, freeing up your testers to spend time on new features, ensuring that bugs aren't missed. You could also be transitioning from waterfall to agile, and you want to include continuous integration into your delivery. These and multiple other reasons are your goal for test automation. It is very important that you identify this goal, as this goal is going to help to identify the tools, techniques, members of the team, and technologies that you will use. This goal is going to drive everything else that you include in your test automation strategy. After identifying why you want to do test automation, you need to start thinking about who is going to do it. Who is going to be writing automated tests, running it, updating it, checking it for failures, creating reports, maintaining it, writing regression tests, etc. All of this is very important, and you need a dedicated team to do this. A lot of times I've seen persons being pulled between manual testing and automated testing. It's difficult, and there is only so much time in the world. Try to have at least one dedicated automated tester on your team that is going to be responsible for doing this. Try to have a proper mix of manual testers, automated testers to developer ratio. You don't want your test team to feel overwhelmed and unable to achieve the goal that you have set out for doing test automation. If you have a team, it can be a mixture. Maybe for now you just have developers and they're doing unit tests, and they may write a few UI functional tests or API tests from time to time. Or you have a dedicated software development engineer in test. Or you may only have manual testers and you're looking to transition your manual testers to start writing automated tests. You need to think about how you're going to train those persons to write, maintain, and run automated scripts. Training is very important, and you need to set aside the proper time to ensure that your team is ready to achieve the goal of test automation. I have found that the best mix of persons for creating a test automation team is someone that understands the project, as well as someone that is able to write an object-oriented programming language and understand a particular framework. Now, there are different tools and languages that you can use to do test automation, and the persons you have available to be on your team may help to determine which language or which tool and framework you decide to use for writing your automated scripts. If it is that you have no one on your team, you need to start thinking about hiring. What will that job description say? What do you want them to have? What skills, what tools, what technology should they know? And most importantly, does the team that you have enough time to achieve the goal of test automation? Another important thing to consider is what you're going to be automating. You have identified your goal and you have thought about your team. But what will your team be automating? Let's say your goal was that you want to automate more regression tests. Then that's going to be your focus. You're going to automate more regression tests. If it is that you want to automate new features in the sprint, then you're going to look at those new features and try to identify which one can be automated in the time given. The test automation pyramid advises that you have more unit tests, so your developers will be involved in creating those unit tests. Then it talks about automating at the service layer. This includes APIs and databases. You want to ensure that those are automated and are working properly. And then at the top of the pyramid, with the least amount of tests, you would have your UI tests. In this part of your test automation strategy, you want to identify what level you're writing your test automation at and what types of tests are you doing. Are you doing new features? Are you doing regression? Are you doing multiple configurations? Are you doing those tests that are heavy with data? Identifying what you're going to be automating will help you to have a solid test automation strategy. The next question that you should ask is how you're going to go about running your automated tests. You need to find a specific tool to fit your project needs. There are a wide variety of tools and languages that you can choose from. If you're doing API testing in Java, you can use Rest Assured. There are also frameworks in JavaScript that you can use to do UI automation, such as WebDriver IO and Cypress. If it is that you're going to do cross-browser testing, you can use Sauce Labs. There are so many different tools, frameworks that you can choose, but you have to think about which one would best fit your project and your team, the team that you have selected. What language do they know? Or what programming language is the project developed in? Is that programming language and framework maintained? And will you get support by the developers of that framework or the community if it is that you encounter problems? Based on the type of test that you're going to be automating, what different tools do you need to suit those needs? For example, if you're doing database testing versus API versus UI, Do you need different tools for those different layers of tests that you'll be doing? This all ties into your goal as well. If it is that you want to have continuous integration as a goal, then you will need to start thinking about continuous integration systems such as Jenkins, GitLab, GitHub Actions. Do you have any reporting tools, and where are those reports stored? Will you trigger your automated test manually on your computer, or will it be done in the morning, in the evening on the continuous integration system? How do your testers go about writing test automation? Are there tickets included in your sprints? Do you point those tickets? You need to think about all that and more and ensure that these tools are within budget. Your team is able to use them, they are well supported, and they can be maintained in the long run. The final thing that you need to consider for a solid test automation strategy is where and when. Where are you going to be running your automated tests? I strongly suggest that you have a dedicated test environment that you run your automated test on. This allows you to manipulate the data so that you can get different scenarios that you would need to verify. I also suggest that you run tests in production. However, those tests should be properly marked or tagged. You want to tag your tests that should run in production so that you can control those specific tests. For example, you may not want to have the entire checkout flow running in production, or make certain delete requests from your API or your database. Setting up your test environment to have the data that you need is very important, and so having database connections that you're using, maybe you're running your test on your local computer, maybe you're running it in the cloud, as I mentioned before, using a continuous integration system. You need to decide what you prefer and what would work best for your project. Other things to consider is where your test data is going to be stored. Does this data need to be masked? What happens to data after your test? Do you need to set up data? Do you need to tear down data? All of these are important things to consider when writing a test automation strategy and should be included so that your team can fully understand the process. Now, keeping in mind that your team should understand the complete test strategy, I would suggest that you use something like a mind map to start drafting out what your strategy will include. This can be a living document that you and your team go through to update and talk about different points. Now, this mind map is inspired by Brittany Stewart. She's also doing a presentation here at SauceCon. At Quality Work, she introduced the concept of mind mapping and how it can be used in testing. And so I created this mind map inspired by her. Now, in this mind map, there are a few key things that I want to highlight. The first thing, let's go through it really quickly, is that you want to have an overview. Now, this overview should be framed as the goal of the strategy. Remember, one of the first things we talked about was identifying the why. Why is it that you want to do test automation? Have that as your overview. That could be a simple statement such as increasing the number of automated regression tests to reduce manual testing, or integrate automated tests into a continuous integration pipeline. Whatever your goal is, put that. Then, after looking at the pros and cons of each automation framework and language that is out there, you're going to decide what automation framework you're going to use for the different levels that we talked about. So API testing, database testing, visual regression, usability testing, unit test. List all of them here. Your team and you will go and decide which one works best for your project, which one is going to work best for the members of your team based on their knowledge. You want to then talk about testing types such as if you're doing regression, if you're going to be doing functional test, smoke test. Do a high level of those type of testing so that your team, when they start writing test automation, they understand what they're supposed to be doing and what they're supposed to be testing as well. You can even go further, but this is not needed. But if you want, you can include the testing areas that you're going to have in your test strategy and on what test environment they're going to be run. You can also include optionally a timeline. How long are you expecting it to take? And then platforms are really important. So this is whether or not you're going to be running it on web browsers, so Chrome, Safari. Are you going to be doing mobile devices, Android? What types of mobile devices? Do you need emulators? Do you need something like Sauce Labs to run on multiple devices, multiple configurations? And then test environments. I had suggested that you run your test on QA and production environments. Identify what those environments are going to be, how they're going to be maintained, what steps do you need to put in place to get those environments set up, who is going to set that up, that sort of thing. And then automation execution. How will you run your automated tests? Will it be scheduled? Will it be run in a continuous integration system? Will it be run locally? Document that. And very importantly, automation code management. Are you going to be doing PRs? Is there a system that you need to write out in terms of who are approvers, who are reviewers, how many approvers does it need before something can be merged into the main branch? Think about all of that. Are you using page objects? How should your page objects be written? What code practices are you using? What best practices should this project follow? And this can be determined by language or by framework. Maybe it is that you are using a linter. What are you using? All of these should be included in this document. And then the final two things, what are the limitations? What are some risks that may happen? Do you have enough members of the team? Do you have the time to do the work? Have you clearly identified your goal? Is management okay with the goal, the team members, the time it's going to take to do test automation? Is there enough budget for the different tools that you're choosing? And then finally, reporting. What tools are you going to be using to report test automation, test coverage, failure, etc.? Now, after creating that mind map, ensure that you and your team go through it thoroughly and make all the different edits that you need to. Let's recap what we talked about today. A test automation strategy should be understood by your entire team. Your entire team should be involved in making the decisions regarding the tools, technologies, types of tests that are going to be run. The first thing you want to do is identify your goal. Your goal is going to help to determine who is going to be on your team, the types of tests that are more important, the types of tools and techniques that are going to influence and get that goal completed, as well as where and when. So first, think about what your goal is. After identifying your goal, start thinking about your team. Who is going to be creating those tests? And very importantly, maintaining and running them. Your tests should be maintainable. Maintenance takes time. Therefore, ensure that you give your team enough time to create the test, run the test, evaluate the test to create reports. If your team needs training, ensure that they get that relevant training that they need. Think about the different areas that they may need training on, whether it's database training, performance training, etc. Think also on what type of test and what level you want to create automated tests for. This will then impact the tools that you use. If you're going to be doing service level testing, such as APIs and database, then you're going to want to use tools that will allow you to make queries and make API calls, whether it's REST API or GraphQL APIs. There are tools like Postman that are good for APIs. If you're doing Java, there's Rest Assured that you can use. Think about the language that you're going to use. So if it is that a project is written in Java or JavaScript, then you may want to use a framework in one of those languages so that more persons on the team will be able to help. Or if it is that you already have some code in a particular language and you want to continue with that, then that could be what pushes you towards a particular language. Make the best choice for you. Do your research. Confer with your team. Make that decision together. Ensure that that language and framework is supported and is in budget. Think about how the tool is going to influence your goal positively. If you want to have continuous integration, then you know that you'll need to have some CI/CD system. So you'll need to start thinking who on your team know how to set up CI/CD, or if you need to hire. And more importantly, where and when. Ensure that you're testing on different environments. Ensure that those environments are set up properly. Ensure that you're using data correctly, you're setting up data and tearing down data correctly. And then use a mind map, a small visual guide that you and your team can use as a living document to go through creating a solid test automation strategy. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really hope that you learned a lot and you're now ready to go forth and create your test automation strategy. Let's stay connected. You can find me on Twitter at iLoge876. Ensure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Julia Pottinger. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.